Who cut down my hedges? I froze when I stepped outside. 10 years of care, privacy and pride gone overnight. In their place? Stumps, sawdust, and standing tall like she owned the world, Karen, our HOA president. With her designer shades and smug little smirk, she declared my hedges were illegal. Illegal? These were my hedges, on my property. The worst part? She didn't even warn me, just hacked them down, arms crossed like some wannabe dictator. I felt my blood boil, but I stayed quiet. What Karen didn't know was that the man she thought she could walk all over had a plan, and soon she'd regret ever touching a single leaf on my lawn. And, trust me, karma was already building. My name is David Tran. I am 52 years old, a retired civil engineer who moves into this suburban neighborhood for a peaceful life after decades of building projects and endless deadlines. I am not flashy, and I don't speak much. To most people, I am just a gray-haired man in worn jeans, work boots, and a faded baseball cap, often seen trimming plants or sitting on the porch with a book. Neighbors assume I am a quiet retiree with too much free time. What they don't realize is that my mind still carries the sharp knowledge of building codes, zoning regulations, and loopholes that once shaped half the city. Then there is Karen Whitmore, our HOA president, the self-proclaimed queen of the cul-de-sac. She is easy to spot. Oversized sunglasses, designer tracksuits that never touch a treadmill, and heels clicking like a metronome of authority. Her voice carries louder than lawnmowers, and her smirk says she is always right. Karen's rules bend for her friends but crush anyone who dares to resist her. Our neighborhood looks like a magazine picture. Brick houses, clean lawns, kids riding bikes in circles. But under that polished surface, tension simmers. Whispers of unfairness and resentment spread from door to door. Everyone smiles at Karen's face but sighs the moment she turns her back. And this morning, as she cuts down my hedges, I realize, what happens when a woman like Karen meets a man who knows the rules better than she does? The conflict begins the very morning my hedges are gone, cut down to nothing but jagged stumps. Karen does not bother hiding her involvement. In fact, she stands on my lawn with her clipboard pressed against her chest like it is some kind of royal decree, her oversized sunglasses reflecting the morning light, her lips curled into that satisfied smirk she wears when she feels untouchable. These hedges are a violation of community safety standards, she proclaims loudly, her voice carrying down the street so even the joggers slow to listen. Her tiny dog barks at my feet, pulling against its jeweled leash as if cheering her on. I keep my hands in my pockets and my tone even when I reply, "You mean the hedges that follow the 3-foot rule in the bylaws?" Karen tilts her head like she is humoring a child. They block sightlines. Children on bikes could get hurt. As HOA president, I have the authority to take corrective action. She scribbles something dramatic on her clipboard and turns on her heels without waiting for a response, her steps clacking like victory drums. That is the first. Strike the destruction of my hedges under the guise of a regulation that doesn't exist. 2 days later, the second strike arrives, neatly packaged in my mailbox. A crisp envelope stamped with the HOA logo in bold blue delivers its poison at my kitchen table, where the smell of fresh coffee can't mask the bitterness rising in my chest. The letter inside declares a fine of $500 for unapproved landscaping changes. I read the words twice, then a third time, feeling the irony burn through me. Karen orders my hedges destroyed, and now I am punished for not getting permission to replace them. The laugh that escapes my throat is sharp, humorless, and lingers in the quiet of my kitchen. I slide the letter into a clear plastic sleeve and snap it into the binder I have started keeping for her antics. The sound of the rings closing is crisp, final, satisfying. Evidence piles up faster than she realizes, and this letter is strike number 2, punishment on paper crafted to remind me of her authority. The third escalation plays out in public at the monthly HOA meeting. The community center smells faintly of disinfectant and burnt coffee, the kind that sits in a pot for hours. Folding chairs scrape across the floor as neighbors settle in, some nodding politely at me, others pretending not to notice. At the front table, Karen sits in a padded chair like a queen presiding over her court. 2 loyal board members flanking her, nodding whenever she shifts in her seat. She taps her pen against the microphone with deliberate rhythm before announcing, "Next item on the agenda, the issue of non-compliance by Mr. Tran." Dozens of eyes turn toward me as Karen raises her chin and unleashes her performance. Mr. Tran refuses to follow community standards. His yard is inconsistent, his landscaping disruptive, and frankly, his attitude undermines the spirit of cooperation we value here. Whispers stir the room. I raise my hand, ready to defend myself, but she slams her pen against the table. "This is not a debate, Mr. Tran. This is about community safety and harmony. If you cannot follow rules, perhaps this neighborhood is not the right fit for you." A few chuckles ripple from the back row where her friends sit, emboldened by her theatrics. My jaw tightens, but I hold my silence, memorizing every word, every smirk. Strike 3 is humiliation, staged to turn the neighborhood against me and cast me as an outsider in my own home. A week later, strike 4 lands with splintered wood and shredded paper. My mailbox, once upright and solid, leans at an awkward angle, its door bent, its post cracked nearly in half. Letters spill onto the grass, torn and crumpled. I crouch beside the wreckage and find a sticky note taped to the side. The handwriting is all too familiar, neat loops on the E, a sharp flick on the P. The message reads, "Eyesore attracts trouble. Clean it up." Later that day, Karen passes with her little dog trotting smugly at her side. She pauses just long enough to glance at the ruins of my mailbox, then at me. "Tsk, vandalism is such a shame," she says in syrupy tones. But then again, certain people bring that kind of attention. The sweetness in her voice can't hide the satisfaction gleaming in her eyes behind those oversized sunglasses. I say nothing, but my silence is not weakness, it is strategy. Strike 4 is intimidation through property damage, hidden behind the mask of fake sympathy. The final escalation comes in the form of a black, unblinking eye. One morning I step outside and notice a new pole planted in Karen's yard, tall and deliberate. At the top sits a surveillance camera angled directly at my property. The lens gleams in the sunlight, capturing every move I make. Neighbors gather in small clusters, whispering behind their hands. "Is that pointed at his yard?" I hear one man murmur. Karen emerges from her garage holding a steaming cup of coffee, her voice pitched to carry across the street. "Security," she says with a cheerful wave toward the camera. "We can't be too careful with certain troublemakers around." The word troublemakers hangs in the air like a foul odor, aimed at me, staining the morning. The camera watches me mow my lawn, trim the bushes, haul groceries inside. It turns every act of daily life into something monitored, catalogued, judged. Strike 5 is surveillance, the clearest sign yet, that Karen doesn't just want control, she wants ownership of my very existence in this neighborhood. Through every strike, I stay calm. I play the role she expects. The quiet man who avoids confrontation, the retiree with too much time and not enough fight. But inside, something coils tighter with each passing day. Anger hums low and steady, but so does calculation. My binder grows heavier, page by page. The fine letter, the photograph of my broken mailbox, the screenshots of HOA expense reports I dig up, that confirm the purchase of that camera, all of it documented, catalogued, preserved. I even write down her exact words at the meeting, the tone of her voice, the way she cuts me off. Civil engineers do not simply understand concrete and steel, we understand systems, how one part connects to another, how rules are enforced, and how every loophole can be turned into a weapon. At night, I flip through the binder and feel the quiet satisfaction of a man who knows the trap he is building. Each page is a brick, each photo a stone, each note another piece of mortar. She thinks she has me cornered, that I am a passive old man she can bully into compliance. But what she doesn't realize is that I know this battlefield better than she does. She believes cutting down my hedges is the end of the story, but I know better. It is only the beginning, and she has no idea how badly she has miscalculated. The turning point begins quietly, almost invisibly, because I know better than to fight Karen on her terms. She thrives on loud confrontations, on making a spectacle out of someone else's humiliation. If I shout, she wins. If I break, she wins. But if I stay calm, meticulous, and deliberate, she walks straight into the trap she never sees coming. The first step I take is with the city itself. I file a formal complaint, complete with photographs of my hedges before and after, copies of the bylaws, and a written account of Karen trespassing on my property without consent. Civil engineers may retire, but the knowledge of codes and regulations never retires. I know the difference between HOA authority and city jurisdiction, and what Karen has done crosses a line she cannot erase with her clipboard or her sunglasses. While the complaint works its way through city channels, I begin rebuilding. But I do not plant hedges this time. I stack cinder blocks. At first, neighbors watch curiously, their conversations hushed as they pass by my yard. Each block is heavy, but my hands are steady, my measurements exact. I set a foundation with chalk lines and levels, every stone laid with the precision of a man who has done this his whole life. By the end of the first week, the wall rises waist-high, clean and sharp against the property line. Karen storms over in her tracksuit, her sunglasses flashing with outrage. "You cannot build this without HOA approval," she snaps. Her voice cracks slightly, a sign she isn't as confident as she pretends. I look up from the mortar, wiping sweat from my brow. "Actually, Karen, I can. The permits are already approved. City zoning allows it, and I made sure the blueprints are on file." For the first time, she falters, lips tightening as she spins on her heels. The wall grows taller, a fortress taking shape brick by brick. By the time it stands shoulder height, it is no longer just construction, it is a statement. Neighbors gather in small clusters, whispering, some even smiling behind their hands. Children on bikes stop to watch, their eyes wide with curiosity. Karen fumes openly now, pacing her driveway, arms crossed so tightly her knuckles show white. She calls out one afternoon, her voice shrill and desperate. "This wall destroys the harmony of our community." I look at her calmly. So did cutting down my hedges. She has no reply, only the sound of her heels clacking back into her garage. Then something unexpected happens. Allies begin to emerge from the very people Karen has spent years silencing. One evening, as I stack the last block of the day, a man in his late 60s walks over from 2 houses down. His hair is silver, his gait steady but slow. "Name's Carl," he says, his voice low. "Retired cop. I saw her on your property that morning. If you need a statement, you've got one." He hands me a slip of paper with his phone number and walks away without another word. The next day, a younger neighbor fresh out of law school, briefcase still in his hand from work, knocks on my door. "I'm Alex," he says. "I've been waiting for someone to stand up to her. If you want, I'll help you prepare for the next HOA meeting. No charge." And then, late one evening, Karen's own husband shows up at my porch, his shoulders slumped, his eyes tired. He doesn't sit down, just slides a thick envelope across the table. "These are financial reports," he mutters. "She's been hiding them from the board. Use them." He leaves before I can say thank you. The binder on my coffee table grows heavier still, not just with my evidence, but with the voices of others who are done being afraid. I flip through the new documents, reading line by line. HOA funds spent on things that have nothing to do with the neighborhood luxury landscaping bills for Karen's yard, surveillance equipment, even receipts for personal purchases. Each page is another nail in the coffin of her authority. I know I must be patient, that timing is everything. A battle fought too early is a battle lost, but one fought at the right moment becomes a war won before it even begins. Then comes the twist Karen never sees coming. For weeks, she has paraded around as though she knows the rules better than anyone else, barking orders, handing out fines, acting as judge and jury. But what she doesn't know is that I'm not just a retired civil engineer. I once worked for the city's zoning board. I didn't just learn building codes, I wrote some of them. I know exactly where her authority ends and where the law begins. It is not just that I have evidence, it is that I understand the very framework she claims to enforce, and I see every violation she has committed. This is no longer a matter of neighborly dispute. This is about law, accountability, and justice. By the time my wall stands finished, smooth and solid at the regulation height, the entire cul-de-sac watches in silence. Some admire it, some whisper, but everyone knows it is unshakable. Karen calls the city inspector, desperate to stop me, but when he arrives, all he does is check my paperwork, measure the wall and nod. It's within limits, he says. Perfectly legal. The look on Karen's face at that moment is worth every hour of sweat, every pound of mortar I carried. She storms away, her voice trailing behind her in angry mutters, but the crowd sees it clearly. Her power is slipping. That night, I sit at my kitchen table, the binder open in front of me, the wall standing strong outside my window. The quiet hum of crickets fills the air, but in my chest there is something louder, a steady, certain beat of resolve. For months, Karen has pushed me, mocked me, tried to break me down with fines, humiliation, vandalism, and surveillance. And now, she is the one unraveling, the queen whose crown is slipping in front of her own subjects. The battlefield is shifting, and she doesn't even realize it yet. The question is no longer whether I can stand against her. The question is what happens when the truth comes crashing down at the next HOA meeting. The night of the monthly HOA meeting arrives, and I can feel the tension humming through the neighborhood like static in the air. Porch lights glow against neat lawns, and groups of neighbors walk together toward the community center, their voices hushed with curiosity. For months, they have watched the battle between Karen and me unfold like a show they never paid for. Tonight, the curtain rises on the final act, and I know exactly how it ends. My binder rests under my arm, thick with evidence, heavy with truth. I walk slowly, deliberately, every step measured. Across the street, Karen struts ahead of her entourage, heels clicking, sunglasses perched on her nose even though the sun has long set. She thrives on theatrics, but tonight, the stage belongs to me. Inside the community center, the air smells of floor polish and cheap coffee. Folding chairs line the room, already filled with neighbors whispering in anticipation. At the front table, Karen takes her throne, flanked by her loyal board members who shuffle papers nervously. She bangs her pen against the microphone, her voice booming as she begins the meeting. Welcome, everyone. Tonight, we will review our progress and address a few issues of non-compliance. Her eyes flick to me for a fraction of a second, a tiny flash of smugness, as if she still believes she controls the script. I take a seat in the front row, placing my binder carefully on the table in front of me. My heartbeat is steady, not from calmness, but from certainty. Karen starts with her usual performance, praising herself for keeping the neighborhood safe and ensuring harmony through strict standards. Her words sound rehearsed, hollow, but some people still nod, conditioned by years of her dominance. Then she shifts gears, her tone sharpening. And once again, we must address the ongoing defiance of Mr. Tran. Despite repeated warnings, he continues to disregard our rules, building a structure that threatens the character of our community. She gestures toward me with a dramatic wave of her hand, her bangles clinking like stage props. His so-called wall is an eyesore, and his attitude undermines the spirit of cooperation that makes us strong. I let her finish. I wait until the room quiets, until her words hang heavy in the air. Then, slowly, I stand. My chair scrapes against the floor, drawing every eye toward me. I pick up my binder, place it on the podium, and open it with deliberate care. With all due respect, Karen, I believe the community deserves the full story. My voice is calm, steady, not loud but carrying enough weight that the whispers hush. I pull out the first document and hold it up. This is the bylaw she claims my Hedges violated. As you can see, the height limit is 3 feet. My hedges were trimmed to exactly that height. They were destroyed illegally, without warning, by the very person who enforces these rules. The room stirs. I hear murmurs, see heads turning, eyebrows raising. I place the next item on the projector, a photo of Karen herself, pruning shears in hand, standing in my yard with my hedges already hacked to the ground. The timestamp glows in the corner of the image. Gasps ripple through the audience. Karen shifts in her chair, her lips pressing into a thin line. "That photo is taken out of context," she hisses, but her voice lacks its usual authority. I move to the next piece of evidence, the fine notice. 2 days later, I receive this letter charging me $500 for unapproved landscaping changes that she herself created. This isn't enforcement. This is abuse of power. My words land heavy, and I can see the recognition dawning in the faces of my neighbors. People exchange glances, their eyes wide with the realization that they too could be next on her list. Then I flip to the page with a photograph of my broken mailbox. 1 week later, my property was vandalized. My mailbox was smashed, my letters torn, and taped to the side was this note. I project it onto the screen. "Eyesore attracts trouble. Clean it up." Gasps turn into murmurs now, people leaning closer, whispering names, pointing fingers. I let them murmur, let the outrage build. Then I deliver the final blow. And finally, the surveillance camera installed with HOA funds. I pull out the receipts Karen's husband gave me, complete with charges billed directly to the HOA budget. This was paid for without board approval, installed on her property, and aimed directly at mine. Not only is this an invasion of privacy, it is a misuse of community funds. The silence that follows is heavy, electric. Then the whispers ignite into voices. One neighbor calls out, "She's been spending our money on her yard too!" Another adds, "I've been fined 3 times while her friends get away with everything. The dam has broken." Years of resentment spill into the room, voices rising, hands gesturing, people standing from their chairs. For the first time, Karen's control slips completely. She bangs her pen on the table, shouting over the noise. "Order! This is slander. You people don't know what you're talking about." But the panic in her voice betrays her. And then comes the moment no one expects. Her husband, the man who has lived in her shadow for years, stands slowly from his seat near the back. His face is pale but resolute. "Enough, Karen," he says, his voice carrying with a firmness that silences the room. "You've embarrassed this neighborhood long enough. They deserve the truth." He turns to the crowd. Every word he says is true. I've watched it happen. I've tried to stop it, but she doesn't listen to anyone, not even me. The weight of his confession crushes whatever flimsy defense Karen had left. The board members exchange nervous glances, whispering frantically before one of them clears his throat. Given the evidence presented tonight, and the testimony provided, I motion to remove Karen Whitmore as HOA president, pending a full investigation. Hands shoot into the air in agreement, one after another, faster than Karen can protest. The vote passes overwhelmingly, and the gavel comes down with finality. Karen is no longer in power. The room erupts into applause, not polite, restrained clapping, but thunderous, cathartic release. Neighbors smile, laugh, even cheer, some wiping tears from their eyes. The weight that has hung over the community for years lifts in a single evening, and for once, the air inside the community center feels lighter, freer. I close my binder quietly, the applause washing over me, not for me alone, but for the justice they all feel at last. Karen storms out of the room, her sunglasses still perched on her face even in the harsh fluorescent light. But now, no one avoids her gaze, no one bows to her authority. They watch her leave with relief, some even with satisfaction, as if a storm has finally passed. I remain standing at the podium, binder in hand, feeling the eyes of my neighbors on me. I do not gloat, I do not smirk. I simply nod. The calm acknowledgement of a man who knows the battle is won, but the work of rebuilding has only just begun. In the days following the explosive HOA meeting, the neighborhood breathes easier, as though a suffocating weight has finally been lifted. The same streets that once felt tense and watchful now hum with a new energy. Neighbors who used to hurry indoors when Karen walked by now linger on their porches, chatting openly, laughter floating into the air. For years, Karen's presence has been like an invisible fence keeping everyone in check, but now that fence is broken. People feel freer, lighter, and even the air seems sweeter without her constant shadow looming over every lawn and driveway. But Karen herself does not vanish overnight. At first, she keeps her blinds drawn, and her car tucked in the garage. A few times I spot her peeking through the curtains when I water the garden, her face pale and tight with fury. Rumors swirl quickly. Some claim she is fighting the city's fines. Others whisper that lawyers refuse to take her case because the evidence is overwhelming. Then the official notices begin to arrive. The city cites her for trespassing and unauthorized destruction of private property. The HOA, under interim leadership, launches a full audit that exposes her misuse of community funds, money funneled into luxury landscaping for her own yard, expenses for surveillance equipment, even receipts for high-end personal items masked as neighborhood improvements. Her empire of control collapses not in a dramatic spectacle, but piece by piece, until there is nothing left to defend. The final blow comes one quiet morning when a moving truck rumbles down our cul-de-sac. I stand at my window and watch men carry boxes from Karen's house, stacking them with practiced indifference. For the first time in years, she is not dressed in designer tracksuits or clacking heels. Instead, she wears simple jeans and a loose sweater, her sunglasses still on, but her shoulders hunched. She looks smaller, deflated, like a balloon losing air. Neighbors gather discreetly, standing on lawns or watching from porches. No one jeers, but no one offers sympathy either. They simply observe, the way one watches a storm finally pass after years of damage. Karen keeps her chin down, refusing eye contact, until she slips into the passenger seat of a dark sedan. When the car pulls away, a ripple of relief passes through the street, as though the entire neighborhood exhales at once. Her house sits empty for weeks, a hollow shell of what once was her fortress. Eventually, a new family moves in, and with them, new laughter and light spill out of the windows. Karen's reign becomes a story people whisper about at barbecues, a cautionary tale for newcomers. Don't cross the neighborhood, or you might end up like her. But for me, her departure is not the end, it is the beginning of something larger. The absence of tyranny creates space for growth, and my neighbors, once cowed into silence, begin to find their voices again. At the following HOA election, the community center overflows. People who skipped meetings for years now show up with determination, eager to make their vote count. For the first time, real debates happen. Candidates talk about fairness, transparency, and restoring trust. When my name is nominated, I shake my head at first. I didn't fight this battle to take her chair, I say quietly. But the crowd insists. They want someone who understands the rules not as weapons but as guides. They want someone who values respect over fear. In the end, the ballots leave no doubt. I am elected HOA president with overwhelming support. I accept the role not for authority but for duty. The neighborhood deserves protection from another Karen, and if my binder and I can provide it, then so be it. Meanwhile, my cinder block fortress remains, standing strong at the edge of my property. At first, it is mocked as defiance, whispered about as excessive, but as weeks pass, it becomes something else entirely. I soften it with climbing roses, their vines weaving across the stone until bursts of pink and red spill over the grey. Lanterns hang at intervals along the wall, glowing softly at night, turning what was once harsh into something inviting. Neighbors stop to admire it. Some even ask for advice on their own gardens. The wall evolves from a symbol of resistance into a landmark of resilience, a reminder of what happens when someone refuses to bow to abuse. Spring arrives, and with it, the annual neighborhood festival. This year is unlike any other. Tables spill out onto the cul-de-sac, heavy with homemade dishes, casseroles, pies, trays of cookies. Children race around with balloons tied to their wrists, their laughter echoing off the brick houses. Music hums from portable speakers, and for once, there is no undercurrent of tension, no cautious glances toward Karen's driveway. The air smells of barbecue smoke and fresh grass, not of suspicion and fear. People smile genuinely now, not the forced smiles of survival, but the kind that come easily when freedom is finally felt. Near the end of the day, a group of children gathers by my wall, playing hide-and-seek behind the roses and lanterns. Their giggles ring out like bells, and the sight warms me more than I can explain. One by one, neighbors approach with small pots of flowers, asking if they can plant them along the base of the wall. "To make it ours too," one woman says softly. I nod, and together we kneel in the soil, pressing blossoms into the ground, side by side. The wall, once mine alone, becomes a canvas for the entire community, decorated with their colors, their care, their hope. As the sun dips low, painting the sky in streaks of orange and purple, I unveil a wooden sign carved by a local craftsman. I hang it at the center of the wall, where everyone can see. The words read simply, "Respect grows here." Neighbors clap, some even cheer, and the phrase echoes in their voices. It is not just a slogan, but a promise that rules will no longer be twisted into weapons, a promise that fairness will guide decisions, not favoritism, a promise that strength lies not in domination, but in unity. Looking around at the festival, I see more than food and laughter. I see transformation. I see a neighborhood that has faced down tyranny and chosen justice. I see people who once kept silent now speaking freely, children who once played cautiously now racing without fear, and neighbors who once avoided eye contact, now working hand in hand to plant flowers at the base of my fortress. Karen's legacy is a warning of what happens when power is abused. But our legacy is stronger. It is proof that even in the quietest corners, justice can take root, respect can bloom, and courage can turn a wall of stone into a symbol of hope. And as lantern light flickers against the roses climbing my wall, I know this story is no longer about hedges or fines or cameras. It is about standing firm when it matters most. It is about neighbors finding their voices. It is about the truth-building walls stronger than fear ever could. And here, in this place where respect grows, it is about knowing that sometimes the greatest legacies are not written in titles or power, but in the freedom left behind for those who come next.